That reporting. And joining us now is Republican Congressman Max Miller of Ohio. He's also a member of the Congressional Jewish Caucus. Congressman, thanks so much for making time to be with us today. We're going to get to Elena's reporting and the RNC retreat in a moment. But I want to go back to the top of our program where we were talking about these ceasefire talks and the hostage deal that they're trying to work out in Cairo. You supported that aid package to Israel. How do you hope these talks unfold? What do you hope to see happen?
Yeah, Jessica, and thank you very much, and thank you for having me on. I proudly supported the supplemental, not only for Israel, Taiwan, but also Ukraine. Look, I hope these talks are fruitful, and I hope that this war can be brought to an end. But make no mistake, people can give Israel every piece of advice. The United States of America can, other nations can. But at the end of the day, this is a decision for the Israeli people and Prime Minister Netanyahu to make this decision. And so, if they're not there at the negotiations, it doesn't give me a lot of hope that they're going to agree to something when they're not there to go ahead and have oversight of it. I hope it's fruitful, but it's Israel's decision to make.
And I want to ask you, too, about Rafah, because kind of looming over these discussions is this potential ground incursion in Rafah, which is that city in southern Gaza where more than 1 million civilians have gathered and been kind of sent toward and to. And the White House has asked for a plan from Israel on how they're going to protect those civilians should they go into Rafah. We have reporting that says that the White House has gotten some information, but they don't so far think they have what they see as an executionable plan that would protect civilians there. So going off of what you just told me, do you think that the Prime Minister and the Israeli government will hear and accept the White House concerns around this issue?
I think they can hear the concerns, and I think they can accept the concerns, but ultimately the decision for their country to act on their own accord is up to them. And if they believe that they need to go into Rafah to take out the 4 Hamas battalions that are left in order to protect their own country, that is their decision to make. And to be clear, Hamas has stated that there will be an October 7th every single day if they are still in existence. If we faced a threat like that within our country, I can promise you that we would react swiftly and eliminate the threat as we have in so many of these wars that we've been in. I would like to see this end, but ultimately, Israel needs to do what's best for Israel and to not see another 1,300 Israelis slaughtered, raped, and babies put in ovens like it was the 1930s and 40s.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying. What about the civilians there in Gaza who are just civilians, or the children that are there that are there in Rafah? What do you think should or could be done to protect them while Israel tries to clear their objective here?
Every consideration should be taken into a place when it comes to civilian and casualty life. And I believe that Israel has done that to the best extent possible in a war that no military has ever fought in. No military has ever conducted a war where their enemies are hiding not only their own civilians, but Israeli hostages and American hostages in mosques, in schools, in over a dozen hospitals. How do you fight a war effectively and go ahead and conduct that? And when it comes to the Gaza Ministry of Defense releasing their number, I believe that it is exaggerated to some extent. I don't trust anything that really comes out of that region, because look at the hate that they espouse and the indoctrination that they push to their children to go ahead and to say slaughtering Israelis and Jews is a good thing. This is something that Israel can work out. But at the end of the day, I believe that this has to end. And the only way to do that is to eliminate Hamas.
And I also want to talk about the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act that you helped draft. It was just passed in the House in a bipartisan vote. It was in response, in part, to these campus protests that we've been seeing and that we've been talking about on our show as well. It would require the Department of Education to use the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance working definition of anti-Semitism. Tell us more about this bill and why you thought it needed to pass right now.
Absolutely. So this bill was actually signed by President Trump and his administration by an executive order and maintained under President Biden. So a lot of bipartisan support there, and well over 300 members of Congress in a bipartisan fashion supported this bill. And here is why, Jessica. If college presidents and university leaders aren't going to take action on their universities to address the hate, and when we see signs that say Free Palestine and Final Solution right below it, That is why that bill hit the floor, and that is why we passed it in such an effective way with the vast majority of Congress pushing it. And to make no mistake, university presidents aren't going to take control of their campuses. We will, and we will push back against all forms of hate and not just anti-Semitism.
And we have heard from Jewish students who do feel very unsafe on some of these college campuses. We've also heard from other students who say they do have a right to their First Amendment. They have their First Amendment right to protest. What do you say to critics about toward this legislation that say that it curbs the right to free speech, that it infringes on their First Amendment rights?
I didn't hear these critics go ahead and come out when President Trump signed this executive order. Everyone was silent then. I think that right now we're dealing with a very emotional climate when it comes to people and the Jewish people in Israel. And people are not acting based off of logic anymore. They're reacting off of emotion. And I believe that anyone who didn't support this bill, in my opinion, not just because I'm Jewish, this is the right thing to do, to be clear. And I believe that members of Congress, when I'm there in my first term, they do this as political votes. I mean, I am so upset and disappointed by so many people that I know on my side that didn't support this piece of legislation because they thought it would be a good fundraising opportunity for them. And I hate to tell you that, but that is just the unadulterated truth about some members of Congress. At the end of the day, this does not limit free speech. What this is going to do is hold accountable individuals who are espousing genocide and saying final solution. You can disagree with Israel. You can disagree with their policies. But if you say from the river to the sea and you'd like to exterminate every Jew, Jessica, what does final solution mean? Because I can tell you that half of my family or 2/3 were wiped out in the Holocaust at Auschwitz. I understand what it means. And so do all of my people. And so does every American. And this is why we went ahead and did it.
And I hear in your voice the frustration at some of your colleagues for not supporting this. And I'm thinking about, too, how so many people are retiring from Congress at this moment in time, saying kind of a similar thing of what you're saying. It's become too political. It's become all about fundraising. No one wants to work together. Do you think about that a lot? I can hear it in your voice on this issue, but more broadly, does that frustrate you as well in the House?
Overall, I'm a freshman member. I go there every single day. I put my head down and I look at every piece of legislation that I believe can do the very best for my district. And what really disheartens me, and by the way, it's not only on our side, it's on the Democrat side as well. We genuinely have people now who have gone beyond the pale in terms of their rhetoric just to seek attention. I mean, we talk about the motion to vacate with Marjorie Taylor Greene. That is nothing but a danger to this country and a continuity of government. While Republicans only have a 1-seat majority, she would effectively give it away to the Democrats. I mean, we are working with people who are ripping our party apart, and we are now making incremental progress. And I believe, and I was a critic of Speaker Johnson, I believe that Speaker Johnson has been doing a tremendous job by leading and not giving in to 20 people who act like petulant children and lead from the front. And I'm proud to support him. And I'm proud that he's putting these pieces of legislation on the floor and leading.
All right, Congressman Max Miller, we've got to leave it there. But thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Jessica.